Boom. All right. I just yelled boom into the mic as I hit record.
Are you recording?
Yeah, I'm recording.
All right.
All right. Cool.
All right.
All righty then.
In the famous words of Matthew McConaughey,
All right.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, he did say that.
He did say that.
He's a great dude. Let's hold on.
Have I ever told you that I know the person that runs his tequila brand social media? It's a little flex on the podcast for you. Her name is Morgan. Shout out Morgan.
What is his tequila brand?
Matt is yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it's called. I don't drink tequila.
Wait, do you just know a person who claims to run his tequila brand?
No, I worked with her before when we were brand ambassadors together for a men's skincare company.
Okay.
And she left there and she used to work for BuzzFeed and now she's his social media manager for his tequila.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How did she get that job?
Because she's amazing at what she does. She's really good at what she does.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's great.
Shout out Morgan.
Do tequila and skincare ever cross over? Yeah, they do.
No.
Is it the agave? Is that what it is? Is the sugar
it's the
from the
agave
plant
nectar.
and stuff? Yeah, you just rub it on your face. I'm pretty sure you would break out if you just rubbed agave nectar on your face.
Somebody told me once to rub testosterone gel on my face to grow a beard.
To rub what?
Testosterone gel on my face.
Testosterone gel?
To grow a beard.
That's a... People... Snake oil salesmen have existed all throughout history, right? And I'm sure, like, this is one of those things where people are like, eat 3 pieces of chocolate a day for better heart health. It's like, well, not fucking everyone, man. Like, I'm sure for somebody genetically, chemically, metabolically, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe even it's like a small subset of people, but like, people will just tell you shit, like, and they'll just say it. There's so little fucking like research that goes into the advice giving ad hoc colloquialism culture that we exist in today. You know, like I can't tell you how many people are like, well, you know, 1 glass of wine every day it's good for the heart, and it's like, no, it's not. Like,
apple a day keeps the doctor away.
You're quoting studies that you have not even read the full study on. Like,
and they're outdated too.
Most. I mean, an apple a day keeps the doctor away is a colloquialism because it's like, well, eat whole foods.
Yeah, eat fruit.
Yeah, but then of course don't eat the apple that's like growing in the orchard that's next to where all of the fucking sewage runoff from like the chemical plant is. We know that now. Those apples will kill you. An apple a day will kill you. If Toxic Avenger
was created there,
right?
Don't eat the apples.
Yeah, don't eat those apples. Like we've as we've learned these things over time, but it's so funny. People just want these beautiful, simple truths of the world to like always exist as like and that's the thing that we're talking about this week is all we ever want as humans is solid, concrete proof that something that we say is undeniably true, simple, beautiful, and affects only us. You know?
Oh, sorry. Yes. That was weird. My back support just fell.
I'm trying to get deep, Odie. I'm trying to get deep with you here. Well, we're going to get deep.
We're going to get real deep.
We're going to get real deep.
Under
I don't know why you said that. When you know we're going to get deep, man. We're going to get deep. We're going to get deep philosophically. We're going to get deep emotionally. We might touch you a little bit emotionally, right? We might get a little deep emotionally. How deep? I think the question here. I've never spoken to you this way before in our entire relationship. How deep are you willing to get?
As deep as it takes, Kevin.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Oh my God. All right, are you ready to clap?
Yes.
What is going on?
My space is very uncomfortable because I usually don't sit in here for this long.
What is
uncomfortable? We've been talking for 40 minutes before we started recording.
Well, it was important. Life
it
things
was
are
important.
Do you need to adjust yourself?
I just did.
Do you need to adjust yourself again? Because you're
no,
not.
I'm gonna try not.
You get
I'm
one
gonna try
more.
To stay perfectly
this entire podcast.
I'm gonna stay perfectly still.
Hold on, let me adjust myself.
I'm locked in.
All right, all right. I'm locked in. I'm gonna get a belt and lock myself into this. Now,
just tie yourself to your chair.
Are you ready to clap?
I'm ready to clap.
Okay. Hold on, let me adjust myself. All right.
Stop it.
3, 2, 1. On time, every time. Welcome back to another episode of the Unpop Podcast. I am your Capitan Total El Siempre in a submarine this week. Kevin Miner, he, him.
Submarine?
Yeah, because we're going deep.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Boop. I'm going to put a submarine sound effect in there.
Gate?
Boop. What?
Is it Ocean Gate?
Get the fuck out of here. Kevin Miner, he, him, with me as always is.
Odie Matthews, the chef, refusing to get in a submarine because they legitimately terrify me, cooking up content.
Don't worry, a couple billionaires funded it. We didn't even test it or anything. It's going to be great.
Yeah, we'll just use aluminum or whatever.
Look, our podcast implodes weekly anyway. Like, this is
wait,
fine.
How long before there's a movie that spoofs Ocean Gate or, like, uses that concept where people go underwater and they eventually implode? How long?
I mean, okay. Who's writing it? And I'll give you the date on when it comes out. Because if you're thinking that it's a serious drama about this, right?
No.
It's never happening. But this sounds like a very funny Coen Brothers film. Like,
I was thinking like Uwe Boll. I was thinking like horrible, bad, low budget, like.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can see that.
Because like I think of Steamboat Willie came back into the public domain.
Yeah.
And that movie came out like right after it.
Oh,
like,
immediately they were ready
because they were ready. They had it filmed already.
Yeah.
Like they were ready to go with it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like that.
What do you think? Yeah, I think that's already been made. I think we just haven't seen it. It's on Amazon now. Like, it's one of those ones that people, and a lot of people don't realize this. You can just upload a movie to Amazon, and Amazon treats it as a movie, but like you actually kind of surrender the rights to certain parts of it and stuff. Like you almost ruin your own IP when you do things like that. But a lot of like low budget directors who haven't made a name for themselves don't work with any like big production houses or anything like that yet, or maybe trying to start up their own production house and get some notoriety. They're uploading shit constantly, and there's so many bad films that you could watch on there. I mean, you run Magnum Nobis, you've seen all of them.
I've seen every bad film ever made. That's my goal in life, to ruin my brain with bad movies until I die.
Well,
so far so good.
But we're not talking about that this week. What are we talking
about?
We're
talking about good movies.
We're talking about some good movies.
True.
But not necessarily good things. Although they might be good things based on how you perceive humanity. What are we talking about?
What are we talking about?
Cosmic horror.
Okay.
Cosmic horror this week.
Horror.
Yes, cosmic horror. It is a genre. I don't know. Did you prep anything on a little bit of the history of cosmic horror for us, or would you like me to talk about the history of cosmic horror for us?
I think you probably have more history of horror.
I'm only going to say it that way now.
than I do.
Horror.
You know what I bring to the table, Kevin? I bring a bunch of movies and facts about them.
Well, this is really the Aurora Borealis of the horror genre.
Is this going to be a podcast of puns and wordplay?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Cosmic,
but okay.
Cosmic horror has existed. Really, the roots of what gets classified as cosmic horror are. I gotta stop. You know what? I thought I could commit.
You set the bar.
All right.
You can't stop.
The roots of cosmic horror come from. Someone's gonna be like, I can't listen to this anymore.
Then they're not for us.
They come from really a very base fear that has been innate in human civilization for a long time, and that's fear of the unknown, right? So before fire existed, the unknown was quite literally the darkest night where your eyes had trouble adjusting, right? It's a mist that you can't see through. It's the water that you can't see to the bottom of. It's the vastness of space and how we might never know what's at its furthest reaches. Wow, this is getting deep.
You are getting deep.
I am getting
philosophical up in here.
I said this in the beginning. I gave the warning. But really, like that is that fear. And it can be as simple as a lake where you can't see the bottom, even though you've never even seen another living thing in it, right? It can be as simple as a cavern that you can't see to the back or bottom of. It can be as simple as gazing into the night sky and wondering with a sense of maybe wonder, but also a little bit of like anxiousness. What's out there, right? And so cosmic horror taps into the fear element of those situations, and then brings it, at least the way that we've known it in the modern times, it brings it to light in a fictional and creative way. Was that a good summary?
Yes. Absolutely.
All right, thank
I
you.
think the fear of the unknown hits it perfectly because,
thank you.
yes, like we're gonna talk about cosmic horror, but
Yeah.
you mentioned something that like for me is one of my biggest fears is I have massive thalassophobia and pretty much aquaphobia. I don't like getting in the water.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of water. A lot of unknown stuff in the water. Not for me.
I love
but
how you just so always commonly call it. You're like thalassophobia.
that's what it's called.
I know.
The fear of deep dark water.
Yes.
But like I love movies personally. That like if I have a phobia, like I'm also extremely claustrophobic. So like the movie like The Descent or like Buried with Ryan Reynolds, where it's like very claustrophobic. When horror movies in general like play into my fear, I really like those because the whole point of watching a horror movie is to be scarred. So like when they do that, like the fear of the unknown, like pretty good. Like a great example of that is the movie The Meg, one of the best movies ever made for horror.
Yes.
Yes.
No. Well, okay. So the Meg taps more directly into thalassophobia, and it's not necessarily cosmic horror.
Oh no. I was just using that as an example.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about
yeah.
cosmic.
Yeah.
And sharks from outer space.
I just thought you were gonna go on
not
another
been
one of your Jason Statham kicks.
Oh, okay. So Jason Statham was born in 19.
Yeah. So it's important to note what really brought this to the forefront of the modern and postmodern mindset. And that was really so H.P. Lovecraft, and this is not a podcast about him, but rather about the genre that has blossomed forth from his fiction and then subsequent fictions that have tapped into what turns out to be a long-standing history of fear of the unknown. H.P. Lovecraft comes around. We're going to loose date 1920s, 30s, right? So very similar to our demonology episode. The popularism or the popularity of and the development of the popularity of this genre has happened over the course of the past century, really. So we've got 100 years of developing out this genre. The roots of it go way back to fear of the unknown. It's base fear of humankind. It's innate, right? One of the things that you're most afraid of, like to break it down to the most simple terms, even with like the psychology that surrounds Piaget, who worked with like children, right? He mentions how when a parent covers their face playing peekaboo, that sometimes the child will be afraid that the parent has disappeared, right? And that is the unknown as you're processing it. Well, yeah, you are. You are quite literally stupid. You do not have fully developed senses or cognitive abilities as a baby.
I do.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
as a baby.
Yes.
They're talking about me in general.
No,
like,
you are stupid, Odie. You are afraid. Odie, where am I?
Where'd he go?
So that's the root of that, and as that develops out, it takes different forms in prepubescent, pubescent, and adults. Many people developing thalassophobia, many people developing an unreasonable fear of the unknown coming from the skies all of a sudden or from space, from some outer reach that we cannot see. And it's something oftentimes unfathomable, right? And so H.P. Lovecraft, who very famously said that he wanted to write horror for atheists, that was kind of where he was going. He's like, I want to write something that's going to make atheists afraid because they're not afraid of God anymore. And really, like when you look at there is a cosmology, there is a cosmos that exists in all forms of religion. Essentially, fear of God is its own realm of cosmic horror. We're not touching on that, different topic. But
can I say one thing about cosmic horror?
Yes.
I don't know where what year does your timeline pick up? Because I have one note for 1902.
Hit me with 1902.
Okay, so it's not necessarily horror, but I just wanted to kind of throw it out there. I think I'm done with saying that. But
no, we're not.
Right. Okay. So last episode when I talked about the history of demonology and pop culture, keyword there, pop culture, which is why I started with the Bible, but obviously whole other thing. I kind of went back to the first on-screen films that featured demons, which were silent films in the 1900s. Technically, 1902, A Trip to the Moon, is the first feature film, if you want to call it that features space, going to the moon, and what is out there beyond Earth.
Yes.
It's not the first film to feature an alien or anything like that, but it's important to note that this goes back further than people sometimes remember. Mm-hmm. As early as early 1900s, we were already exploring what's beyond the stars.
Yes. Well, and there are many stories even dating back into medieval or Grecian times that tap into the fear of the unknown. Right.
There's a UFO in the Bible.
The
allegedly
the expression of this innate fear even then comes into a bottomless abyss, which has woven its way into so many different forms of folklore, theology, cosmology, right? The bottomless abyss is also the ever-extending night sky. So those two things juxtaposed but then combined kind of make up the basis of this. So yeah, so it dates back, as far as I see it, it's once again, horraur dates back to Sumerian texts, right? Like a lot of that first starts fleshing itself out in the narrative language in those realms. So like still dipping back into, Hindu, Buddhist cultures, Zoroastrianism, even some of the levels of Gnosticism are dealing with that. I would say that like the concept of Buddhist hell is very cosmic horror. It's so Naraka, you have this place that you go for 16 billion years before you reincarnate, which is Buddhist hell. If you don't reach enlightenment, and I think a lot of people don't know this, if you don't reach enlightenment in Buddhism, congrats, you get 16 billion years, 8 billion hot and 8 billion cold.
One of my tattoos is a Buddhist symbol. It's the Inso circle.
There we go. So you have this realm that exists, and I would say that if you are afraid of that, you are afraid of the cosmic consequences of your own religion, of your own faith.
I like that.
Thank you. So
we're getting deep, Kevin.
We're getting so deep. So H.P. Lovecraft comes along. He's very much influenced by. There's an older story called The King in Yellow. Feel free to look it up. We're not doing an expose on this. But H.P. Lovecraft kind of delves into that. He says, well, how do I make something that atheists can be afraid of because they're not afraid of God? He starts crafting these things that we refer to as, and this is also where the synonym for this comes on, these eldritch gods, these sleeping ones, these old ones, these deep ones. This is kind of, there's these vacuous terms that he uses to describe them, and then he allows the reader's imagination to extrapolate that data and translate it however they want, which is what makes a lot of Lovecraftian or cosmic horror so effective.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah. Hit me.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, Lovecraft was one of those things. You mentioned, he's there for atheists,
people,
right?
Yeah, but things, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really fun because, as somebody who was raised as a Christian, no longer, but, I was never allowed to interact with anything Lovecraftian, like Cthulhu, any of that stuff, because, it was different than what my religion, like you were saying, playing into that fear of your faith and like what the consequences are, because it wasn't attached to anything that, my upbringing could relate it to. I wasn't allowed to because it was just like I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter either because dark magic was against the Bible and stuff. And so the idea of Lovecraft has been one of my obsessions. I love, like, did you ever see Lovecraft Country, which was a TV show that kind of plays into it?
Yeah, it's great.
One of the D&D campaigns I did was a Call of Cthulhu campaign. Like,
Wait, do you mean that you played Call of Cthulhu or you played D&D and incorporated Cthulhu?
It was a Call of Cthulhu. I'm sorry, it's not D&D. It's a Call of Cthulhu role-playing game.
Just specifying. Because Call of Cthulhu is its own system with it like, yeah.
The D100 system. But anyways, so everything you're saying, like, I love Lovecraft, and I love talking about Lovecraft, and his influences across horror are so vast, and just, he's so weird, and I'm just happy that that's where you're starting, because I think it's, like, Cthulhu is just, I mean, come on, Cthulhu? Like,
well, that's where what we know it as now. Cthulhu is actually, what's really funny about Cthulhu is the imagery around, and then some of the lore that's been created after that story, the Call of Cthulhu, is actually much greater than the story itself, because in the real story, spoiler alert, they drive a boat into him and he kind of pops like a balloon in a weird way. Yeah, and just, if you can imagine, just like a little Cthulhu just flying on, and like it turns what has been this gigantic buildup into essentially nothing. Like you're kind of like, oh, all right,
that's okay.
And what's funny is there's a moment, because knowing that and then watching the new version of The Mermaid, or even the old version, they drive a ship into Ursula.
That's true.
It's very like Ursula is. Here's what we're here to say, guys. Ursula is Disney Cthulhu.
You heard it here first, folks.
She's an elder god. But so Lovecraft he forms this a couple things that we're not going to get too into on this podcast. Feel free to get into it on your own time. Lovecraft, although super religious and a teetotaler, which is someone who does not drink, which is myself, but teetotalers were like the annoying version of that. They're like, I don't drink, and neither should you, and neither should you, and like they would specifically give their friends a hard time. Both a Christian, a teetotaler, and then also someone who was super fucking racist. And we're not, once again, these are the three things we're not touching on. We don't care about the man. We care about the mythos, right? So we're looking at...
And if he sucked, then he sucked. If he was racist, fuck him.
Whatever.
We don't want him here.
Whatever.
We'll take his work, though.
Still love a lot of the stories. Yep. Still going to draw influence from a lot of the stories. That? Yeah.
What I find funny about the whole racist comment is the fact that Lovecraft Country starred people of color.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
well,
that's such a good...
In the very beginning, I was like, oh, nice.
I love that.
Good call.
Love
yeah. And then even, even reaching into like Alan Moore and things like that, like as this has developed, Alan Moore has the giant space octopus in
Watchmen.
Yeah. And then there's even the in the sequel TV show, which was absolutely fucking amazing. There's like raining squids coming from the sky.
Yes, and it's all just manifested by Ozymandias.
Exactly.
So good.
So, looking at cosmic horror though from the greater view, cosmic horror, there's a lot that has bled itself into modern culture, but we want to kind of dig into like the why, the how, and where it best shows itself, right? And so we've covered that why. The how is that it often focuses on things that are greater in either size, scope, or fathomability than human beings. Very often that fathomability comes into play because we're afraid of the unknown. So what's unknown to us? Well, something with an uncountable amount of eyes or tentacles or an unfathomable height or distance or girth. That's where Lovecraft did the good job crafting his stories, is that not intentional plan words, but also not. But the way that he would craft these stories is that he would very often have something that was relatively unknown to us at the time. In many ways, a lot of his stories have influenced science fiction as a whole, right? But when you start leaning into more of that unknown is where we start labeling it as Lovecraft, because he actually, I believe he had the first story of human swapping brains. A lot of things that we see in or rather grew up seeing in like pop culture, like even Looney Tunes would touch on stuff like that, but very often, and this is where I think a lot of people are kind of missing the greater element of Lovecraft. What he actually gave us was hard-boiled detective novels.
Well, Alone in the Dark, the video game series, takes some inspiration from Lovecraft. Not the movie. The movie's terrible. But the games, never played them, but apparently they're better. And it wouldn't be hard to be better than that movie because it's bad.
Yeah.
But very big influence there. Well, an investigator thrown into like a paranormal, extraterrestrial kind of like scenario with creatures and things he doesn't understand. And I love when people have like that point of view character.
Yeah.
In any kind of media, whether it's a book, a game, whatever, that point of view character where it's like, here's a normal Joe Schmo, could be you, now look where you're at. Yeah. Like that's just,
well, and
he did a really good job of that.
Yeah, and I would almost say the opposite of cosmic horror is cosmic fantasy. And what's really interesting about cosmic fantasy is there's so much in that realm, but the biggest thing I can actually mention is the Harry Potter universe. Like, humans are unaware of this thing that's greater than them, including magic. And then the Fantastic Beasts first movie does what I think is the best of having a grounded human character experiencing cosmic fantasy for the first time. Lovecraft, getting back into the how, the way that the horror would eventually... I fucking hate that I'm doing this.
You started it.
I know, and now I have to commit. But the way that it would come about in his stories... I'm just going to find ways around saying the word horror now. But the way that it would come about, the innate fear, the experience thereof of the character would come about in these stories is something would be off. Something would seem different. Something would seem strange. They would investigate. And the vast majority of most of his stories is the investigative portion drawing the tension on the uncertainty, the discomfort, because the entire time the thing is unknown, right? And then we have this rule in modern horror, like don't show the monster too early, and in some cases don't show it at all, right? Because to perceive and to conceive it lowers the level of fear, lowers the level of horror, right? So you have these characters that are going through this entire experience and they're investigating, they're uncertain, and then when you get to the big reveal in a lot of Lovecraft stories, the words that I mentioned in the why are uncountable, unfathomable, inconceivable. This thing that a human brain and like the human senses can literally not process, right? And that was what he deemed to be the scariest thing. And for a lot of people, that is very scary. The sheer inability of a human to fully process and contain the idea of a thing that they are witnessing is most foreign to us, because I don't think there's anything in our lives that like we can't process, like it's the world, you're observing it, you rationalize. The thing that you do is you rationalize, you compartmentalize, you translate everything that you see. And so the inability of the characters in his story to do that is the crux, is like the central element of the horror.
Agreed.
Cool.
And that's what I think elevates it. And I think that's what Lovecraft did so well. And in addition to that, some of the properties that I'm going to talk about, I got a mixture of like some series and games and movies, really play into that. I think that you said it really well earlier, where it's like this unfathomable size. And I think about, we've kind of applied that to areas that aren't obviously cosmic horror, but like you think of like Godzilla, right? Like the idea of this giant lizard that has atomic breath fighting a giant monkey that has an axe. Like, that's insane. And and where I guess I'm going with this is more of, you can have the element where this thing is unfathomable and it's scary and it's terrifying, like Godzilla -1, to use the Godzilla example. Or you can have it where it's fun and silly, like King Kong X Godzilla, The New Empire, where they fight an ice dragon and an orangutan with a bone whip. Like, there's two elements to this.
What it does is it grounds it, right?
Exactly.
And then it makes it a different genre. So you can transport things out of that realm relatively.
And I love that. I just, that's like... And I know, like, obviously, if you're listening to this, you probably have figured out how much I love movies. But, like, I just love when like, they do that. When any property takes something and changes it into something unique, which is one of the main reasons, and I've said this before, I love horror movies so fucking much, because you can take any concept, and make it horror.
Yeah. Well, and...
Horraeur, sorry.
Horraeur. Well, we're so fancy this week. And so you've got the why, the how, and then where it shows itself in culture, right? So how we see it now, it's almost been more compartmentalized. So like when I say Lovecraftian horror, you conjure certain Lovecraftian horror, you conjure certain movies or pieces of media to your mind, and very often one of the first things people say is Cthulhu, right? And there's many elder gods, eldritch gods, deep ones, like there's so many of them. But the thing that people most commonly tie it to, because it was the most popularized for such a long time, is Cthulhu. The Man in Yellow being a good second reference. Usually that means that someone's gotten into Lovecraft and kind of dug into it. The Man in Yellow is like this vacuous figure that doesn't necessarily have an identity, is never really given proper true shape or form, but in many depictions has like tentacles coming out from under a yellow robe and a face that you can't quite see. So once again, like, what's under the robe? What's the part of the face that you can't see? Why are there tentacles? And a lot of Lovecraftian horror actually doesn't involve a lot of tentacles, because that's so fucking weird to us, but it makes sense, because like even just saying that, you're like, yeah, that's weird. Like, yes, that's the point, is part of the horror elements is the weirdness to it. There are quite a few, and the best way that I can lean into this is to say that there are many examples of it in literature, but the way that we would focus on it, at least on this podcast, is through movies. And there are quite a few movies. I know that you have brought a list of some of your favorites. I couldn't do a top 5 with this because a lot of them are relatively even with one another. Like
yeah, I can.
Yeah, like
I grabbed a mixture of my favorites and other ones that I think do a really good job. Maybe not necessarily my favorites, but still good and do a really good job of like showcasing this.
Yes,
so I got a mixture.
What I would like to start with, if I may, could I ask you,
if you may,
to enter us into this next part of the discussion by talking about the classic John Carpenter movie, The Thing?
I'm so glad you said that because I would like to take it a step further, Kevin. Can I go back? That movie came out in 1983, so can I go back 32 years before that to the inspiration for John Carpenter's The Thing?
You may.
I haven't. There's a short movie, The Thing from Outer Space, which came out in 1951. Funny enough, the same year that the 1951, The Day the Earth Stood Still came out. So 1951, in a lot of areas when I was doing research for this topic, is the start of like this cosmic horror kind of thing, because if you look at what was leading up to 1951, you had World War II, and during World War II, like all throughout World War II, and pretty much almost, I would say the rest of the 40s were all World War II movies. Were all America's the Hero movies. Were all John Wayne, Western. It was all look at what we did. Look at look at America.
Yep.
Like look how great we are. We didn't really lean into some of these other ideas. So when the turn of the 1950s came, and you'll know that not too long after 1951, you had the Roswell incident and everything like that.
Yes.
So The Day the Earth Stood Still, obviously a great classic about an alien that comes down, and I'm not going to get too much into that one because I haven't seen the original, but The Thing from Outer Space, to tie it back to John Carpenter, after giving my little info dump, is such an incredibly well done movie for 1951. I recently watched it about a week ago, I think it was, and one of my favorite things about that is it's just a man in a suit. But for 1951, it's very like Frankenstein monster, like kind of like old school Universal horror movies. It's black and white, but I love that there's just a scene where the monster comes in and it's clearly a dude in an actual suit and he's on fire and they're throwing more kerosene on him or more gasoline or whatever. He's just like still on fire. But why I wanted to mention this more than anything is I find it really funny that John Carpenter, when he was making the 1982 The Thing, is it 83? I think it's 83.
I believe so.
His main complaint, right? And he even said this like openly at the time, like, I don't want it to be a man in a suit. Like at the end of the day, Alien, which is an extremely good movie, at the end of the day, he was like, it's just a man in a suit, right? But I think it's funny that he insulted the original Thing because it's just a man in a suit. But the creator of the 1951 movie, who was still around in 83, was like, yeah, I don't like John Carpenter's version.
Oh, that's funny.
Isn't that nuts?
That is
they
funny.
didn't like each other's versions, but like,
well, of course
they're both
didn't.
good in their own right.
They have their own perspective on it.
Yeah.
So there's actually the Thing is such a good example because general plot, no spoilers. A thing comes down near an isolated lab where it's fucking nighttime. And then over the course of so many days, hours, just hours. It's hours, literal hours. It evolves into this like human alien hybrid homunculus that's like just absolute bot. It's not just Lovecraftian horror. The Lovecraftian horror element is the thing coming from space, and then it turns into almost just a giant expose into body horror, right?
Yeah. I mean, the special effects of that movie are, insane. It's funny that we look at The Thing and we look at like Blade Runner. Both came out at the same year. Both came out at the same time and both bombed. But both now are considered, great staples of their time, staples of their genre, laying the groundwork for future developments in those genres. And The Thing is just, from start to finish, casting, set, special effects, practical effects, plot, writing, the ending, like everything from start to finish in that movie. I don't care if it's 40 years old or not. Like you can appreciate The Thing through and through.
Yes.
Through and through.
What's really interesting is there also was a short story called The Things, which is a short story written from The Thing's perspective.
Interesting.
It's really good, and it does what, there's the funny moment in so many movies that you and I make fun of where it's like, who's the real monster? And what it does is it turns the humans into the monsters, right? And this thing is just fighting for survival. Once again, the title, right? It leans into that cosmic horror because it's the thing. It's it's nondescript, right? A thing could be anything, right? And so like you're already kind of leaning into that element, that uncertainty. That develops out so far, and like over time, like I said, it's referenced in pop culture so many times. Just this Lovecraftian horror. Even in Looney Tunes and other kid cartoons, you have the brain swapping, and like this unknown thing that someone's investigating. And oftentimes, if you're in the realm of comedy, the big reveal is that it was nothing all along, or a shadow on the wall, or like a cat, or whatever it is, or just something that seems less imposing, right? Because the release of tension, and this goes back into the release of tension in these stories is very often surviving the encounter with the unknowable, right? And Lovecraft even wrote a short story that starred Houdini, where they go beneath the pyramids and like they think that there's this like giant Sphinx monster, and it turns out that it's only like the toe of an infinitely larger being. Like just fucking wild.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so your toe has a face and 4 legs and a tail. Like it's just fucking crazy. Like they see this monster and they're like this thing is the monster, and then like the real horror is realizing that it's something much greater, but they eventually make it out because it's Houdini and he was popular at the time, but that as we move forward in culture, where it really starts to come back is where we're we see movies like I really want to highlight the Alien series here, because they're starting to lean more into the cosmic element that they have in the stories. At first it's cosmic, but it's like creature survivor thriller horror, horror. Keep correcting myself. But like, so as you develop out through the Alien series, it becomes less in the element of the fear and more about the action, because we've talked about that. But now they're leaning back into the cosmic portion of it
with Alien Romulus.
Yeah, not only has it survived the vacuum of space in an ice chunk now, but it can give birth to the very blood that they're using can give spoiler alert, can give birth to like this weird alien human hybrid thing, right?
Alien 3 style.
They're almost
Alien 4?
Yeah, well,
whichever one.
They're that's Alien Resurrection. They're 4, I think.
4.
But they're leaning into the cosmic portion of that now, which is, I think that's a really good move, because there's so much that's been overdone in the classic like body monster horror genre.
Yeah.
We could not get through this without, and I want to give you a moment to mention a couple if you want to after this. We could not get through this without mentioning one of my favorite horror movies of all time, Event Horizon.
That's on my list.
It's the best. It is.
Oh,
okay,
Sam
so
Neill, baby.
The reason I mention this almost any chance I get when we're talking about horror is that Event Horizon was the first movie to scare me in such an irrational way. Like, they're in space, it's in the future, it's on something that doesn't exist in human history, it's dealing with really wormholes. Like, the plot of the movie kind of goes around the idea of, like, what happens when you fold space, create a wormhole, and travel through it. But just the sheer terror of the unknown in that entire movie, and how it invades the minds of the humans, and just like it shows how weak we are, and it really highlights those weaknesses when the minds of the humans are invaded and then they start inflicting violence upon one another, because it just shows like, it turns out at the end of the day you're just a flesh bag supported by a bone structure, and you have this weak brain, and if something were to get into that and like just have nothing but ill intent for you and you're like have no concept of your well-being or any other living thing's well-being or sentient thing's well-being, like the way that it would inflict its violence is immeasurable, like it's just so fucking nuts.
It's such a good movie.
So good.
I love that one.
And then once again, the release of tension comes from not necessarily the infinite and definite destruction of the thing that brought the terror the entire film, but just slowly going away from it, knowing, okay, well, at least that part's over, Exactly.
I honestly haven't seen that movie in a while. I need to rewatch it.
It's so good.
I was going to say, sticking with the 1950s in the origin of things, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to one of the first horror movies I got to watch because it's silly and from 1958 with Steve McQueen.
Oh.
Do you know a young Steve McQueen 1958 horror movie?
Not off the top of my head.
The Blob.
Oh.
One of my all-time favorites, and I feel so strongly that we are due for a modern interpretation. The last one we got was in the 70s, and it was kind of good. Like, it incorporated I didn't like it as much because when the Blob killed people, like, there was blood, and I don't think that's what the Blob should be about.
Yeah.
I think the Blob is literally supposed to be a blob that just absorbs you and dissolves you. There should be no blood. Yeah. That's my standpoint. Yep. But that movie, it's so silly. I made my partner Goose watch it. It's like an hour and 15 minutes from 1958. It's so stupid. It's so poorly done, but it's beautiful. Like, it's one of those that clearly is taking a concept that is before it has the technology and capability to pull it off, and it does its best. And I think The Blob is such an interesting and terrifying idea because it literally is just a little teeny tiny rock hits Earth. This tiny amount of like blobby substance. Like, it absorbs a man, it gets a little bit bigger. It absorbs his dog, gets a little bit bigger. And then the more it just eats, the more it consumes, the bigger and more dangerous it gets. Yeah. So, like, just phenomenal. And, so like, great. I do love how in that movie, too, they find the weakness when they're hiding in the ice cooler in one of the restaurants, and it tries to go in, then it immediately pulls back, and they're like, and I love that the characters aren't dumb, that they're like, oh, it doesn't like cold. It's kind of like The Thing, to tie it back into that, where it's a bunch of guys who, they're smart because they're all scientists and they know immediately what's going on, but they're still fucked. Yeah. Like they're like, oh, this is this? Oh, but cool. Like, we're still going to die. Yeah. Like, but at least we know what it is. Yep. Like,
I do like that. A really good show that it influenced, and there is a live action version now that you can watch, and it's different from the anime, but Parasite the Maxim. Did you ever watch Parasite? Any of the Parasite?
No.
So
let me look.
The very opening line is, I think it's like, one day someone somewhere decided that it would be better for the world if humanity doesn't exist or something. And then like literally the first scene is like cosmic / body horror in that there's a human looking at another human seemingly, and then their face just opens up into this giant, like almost Venus flytrap type thing, and then chomps on the other one's head.
Yeah.
Immediately. And it's just like, oh, that's where we're going with this. And so there is a live action version now. It's on Netflix. It was pretty good, actually. I watched it.
Oh, I'll have to try that.
And there is and the anime I cannot highlight enough, because one of the bigger things that when you delve deeper into some cosmic horror is the philosophy therein. And a lot of times the element that creates the greatest amount of fear is the fact that we aren't important as humans, you know, like there is a thing or a blob, and it's like unfathomable, and we are only its prey, you know, like we aren't the thing that it's weak to a condition or something else, right? And so even War of the Worlds, things like that, like
flu.
Well, at the end it turns out it got the flu. That's kind of comical,
whatever,
but like it's like, oh, a thing like a germ defeated it, you know.
And our missiles could not.
Yeah, there's
and Tom Cruise could not with all his running.
Exactly. And so so there's all all of those kind of lean into that realm. I would say if you're looking for modern ways to introduce yourself to cosmic horror, there are a few ways you could do it. And I would say if you're a movie fan, I've got a couple recommendations.
I have a couple more as well.
Yep, and I feel like we might have a couple of the same. We might not. Who knows? We didn't consult each other.
Can I talk about a game real quick, though?
I was going to say there's a couple movies, a couple games, right?
Right.
And then there's a couple, not instead of video games, there's a couple tabletop games. So let's do games, then we'll do movies, then we'll do other realms to venture into it.
Okay. Well, then I only have one game because I could talk about this game. And honestly, my next deep dive probably will be on this game series because it's one of my favorites.
What is it?
Dead Space.
Oh, I thought it was going to be Bloodborne.
No.
Okay. All right. Dead Space. Yeah. Very similar. Very like cosmic horror. I'll let you. Yeah.
Yeah. Dead Space. For those of you that haven't played it, and if you have any modern system, they did a Dead Space remastered, which is the first game, just kind of like, they touched up and stuff.
Yes.
It is
people loved it.
It's incredible. Yeah. It's literally one of my favorite games next to like BioShock.
Awesome.
The whole point of Dead Space, right? And it gives me a little bit of Event Horizon vibes. It's not the same, but like it gives me the same vibe of
it's very similar. It's very similar.
You're a part of this small crew, and this ship put out this SOS beacon, and this ship is massive. It has everything and anything you could ever imagine. It's a mining ship.
Yeah.
And you're there, and you play a character who's there to help, like, repair. And when you get there and you step in, you immediately start getting attacked by these creatures. Your ship goes down. Like, all this stuff happens, and all you have to fight back is the tools you would use to normally repair the ship.
Yeah.
And
at
it's
first.
at first. And then you can, like, upgrade, and it becomes more of, like, Aliens, the second one,
like
where
an
it's
action.
just, like, yeah, but there are still so many parts of that game, no matter how action heavy it gets, where you'll be walking down a dark corridor, it's very dark, you have just your flashlight, and you'll see figures outside of the corner of your eyes, and all of a sudden you're getting attacked, and it's just, it's scary, and it's entertaining, it's action-filled, it's got a really good plot, I love the ending, and even the follow-up games are still very, very solid.
Yeah, there's 3, right? It's a trilogy.
3 in total, yeah.
Okay, great.
And that's why I'm thinking I might just do, I mean, I encourage you to play at least the remake, reversion or whatever, but like I said, I definitely will be covering, like, all of the story, all of the inspiration, what came, like, I'm going to be doing a deep dive on this game series, I've decided.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are talks of developing a series out of this, right?
Yes. And honestly, okay, here's my opinion about that.
Hit me.
Because I think you'll agree. I think that it should be a TV show.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it should go to a streaming service that will actually put money into it and, like, care and attention. So, like, HBO Max or Apple TV.
Yeah.
Not Netflix, please.
Yeah.
And I think the perfect showrunner, and I could be wrong, but I think if you got the guy that did the new Invisible Man and the new Wolfman that the trailer just dropped for, I think you get him, or you get the guy that did Don't Breathe that did Alien Romulus.
Oh, 100%.
I think you get one of those guys behind it, and you can add. I mean, dude, if the guy that did Alien Romulus did Dead Space, I would die. I would die from excitement.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. I was actually going to say that. That's what I would go with. The reason, okay, so this is real quick side. When adapting a video game, think of all the hours that go into playing it and properly absorbing all of the detail and information in it and appreciating the game for what it is. There are very few ways to do a video game as a movie, period. Like, especially more modern games that have a longer storyline that take like 20, 40, 60 hours to complete for the players. You can pay homage to every element they're in and then still have like 8 to 10 hours of good character development and a little more plot. Because let's be real, video games are great, but it's not like they have to have the greatest character development to still be a great game, right?
No.
So in order to do that, I would say 8 to 10 hours of consumption time, right, as far as like the plot goes, is more appropriate than 2.5.
Yeah, make it a miniseries. Yeah. Give it 8 episodes. And the thing about, like, Dead Space, there's a lot of times in that game where it'll be like, you'll put out your thing and it'll be like, go to this part to grab this thing and then bring it back here. And then you put it in and it's like, now there's 18 monsters coming after you.
Yeah.
Like, you can skip some of that stuff.
Well, and I do think it's worth noting, like, this also, what's really great about Dead Space and other realms or other things in cosmic horror is that you can have the humans not win and it still be very, very satisfying.
Can I speak on that real quick?
Yeah,
because this has been fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
This is a tangent from cosmic horror, so I apologize. But you know about the new Speak No Evil movie that came out with James McAvoy? It's a remake of the 2022 French film.
Yes.
I think it was French.
Yes.
I hate it because they changed the ending to where the spoiler alert. Don't go see this movie. Watch the original. Spoiler alert for both.
I think I'll watch it just for James McAvoy.
Do it.
Okay.
I love him. The original Speak No Evil ends with, and again, spoiler alert, it ends with the parents getting killed and their daughter getting her tongue cut out and being a part of the murderous psycho family. The new one
that's very French.
The new one ends where the family wins.
Oh,
they kill the evil guys, they rescue the kid that they had, and everybody lives happily ever
so
after.
they didn't change the ending, they Americanized it.
Exactly. And it's funny, I'm glad you mentioned that because the director of the original literally said, leave it to America to make where evil has to be triumphed over and evil can never win. Yeah. When in reality, evil mostly wins. And I'm like, you nailed it. You nailed it. I don't want the good guys to always win.
Yeah. Could you imagine if they changed the ending to Old Boy? Oh my God, I would be so mad. Yeah,
that would be.
Yeah, It ruins the film. Like that drastic a change does ruin the film. Okay, so there is a video game that I did want to mention. It's Bloodborne. If you're a video game player, it's one of the most in-depth, dark, gothic feels. Like a lot of the Lovecraftian tales have a gothic feel to them. So in that, Bloodborne is grabbing from that, and you are fighting these seemingly godlike characters in a strange world where humans have been twisted into different things, and the plot twists all involve things that are relatively unknowable to normal humans. And I think that is probably one of the best ways anyone's delved into a Lovecraftian theme in a video game. I hope you agree.
Is there only one Bloodborne game?
Yes.
Should I get it?
Yes.
Okay.
I would
Say
highly
less.
recommend it.
I agree with you, though. I think I agree. That's all I'm saying.
And then, so a couple movies. One that I really want to mention because it super surprised me. I watched it on a whim, and it was good.
Give me a hint.
It has our favorite Twilight character in it.
Robert Pattinson? Lighthouse?
Nope.
Kristen
Yep.
Bell?
Kristen
Or
Stewart.
I mean. Oh.
Underwater.
Oh, Annihilation.
No, Underwater.
Just kidding. Fuck, I got confused.
Kristen Stewart's not in Annihilation. Underwater starts out as your typical survival thriller, right? And then going with the theme this week is as deep as it needs to be, I guess.
It's the Marinara Trench, as deep as you can get.
They're in the Marianas Trench. The Marinara Trench.
Say it right.
They're in the Marinara Trench.
Say it right. It's Marinara.
I know. Sorry, James and Mason. It's the Marinara Trench. And what I love about this movie is it opens up and immediately disaster strikes. All of the character development happens as they are figuring out what's happening to them. So it minimizes the human element. It makes it more about surviving as a human in these conditions. There are some action moments. There are some drama moments. There are some tragedy moments. There are some happy moments. There are some comedy moments. As all of that's happening, but those are much smaller in comparison to the general, I would say, atmospheric horror that's occurring the entire time. And I'm not going to spoil it. Just watch it. Yeah. And the ending has a wonderful Lovecraftian twist.
And it's pretty solid.
It's good. And it's like an hour and a half. It's like it's such a beautiful, it's such a beautiful, fun time to watch it. What a great spooky season to include. Highly recommend. But there's that. Yep.
I was going to say off of that, a movie that I would kind of, if we can go back and forth one and one as we go through this.
Yeah.
I would say the movie Slither. Like, I think that one gets, I think people, because, and I totally understand why, I didn't watch it for the longest time because of the poster, where it's the girl in the bathtub and all the little slugs. Gross.
Oh,
disgusting.
So gross.
Icky. But, I mean, the body horror in that movie, the cosmic horror element, the hive mind, are the good guys going to win element, and, say what you want about James Gunn, but one thing that I really appreciate about him across the board, even from his early works, is he's really good at writing characters. He's really good at writing people that are mostly like, they feel mostly like real people.
Everyone has a reason. Everyone makes choices in his movies. Yeah. For the most part.
So Slither,
I don't want to say all, but yeah.
And Slither has a good cast. Nathan Fillion. It's got Michael Rooker.
Oh my God, Michael Rooker. That movie is like peak Michael Rooker I think that movie is the reason he got cast in so many other things after that. He did such a good job being a villain, you know?
He hurt himself doing that because of all the prosthetics and like animatronics he had to wear. He actually has like permanent back damage from it. Oh God,
poor guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Slither, absolutely amazing. Big recommendation. I can't recommend enough. I bought it recently because it was like for super sale on fucking Amazon or whatever. It was like $5. I was like $5 to buy or $3 to rent, and I'm like, $5. Duh. Yeah. But Annihilation with Natalie Porter.
And Oscar Isaac is in there.
And Oscar Isaac, who does a good job, but I would definitely highlight, I think the people who I would highlight in that movie are Natalie Porter and then Tessa Thompson. Oh my God, Tessa Thompson.
Incredible.
Her performance in that entire movie is phenomenal. Like every time she was on the screen, I was like enthralled. But the way that it does kind of have like a good triumphs over evil question, like it's got a really good ending too. Like I like the last couple seconds of that film are fucking perfect. It it highlights human inadequacy. There's so many things. Yeah, and like it plays with the thing that I like the most about it is it plays with your eyes as the viewer. It plays with your senses to put you more in the shoes of the characters in the film.
I agree.
Good.
It's so good.
I only have one more, so if you have one more.
Let me see how many I have left. So I wrote down
movies. I only have one more.
Oh, okay. I have a couple more. Let me just speed run a couple of these, and I'll talk about my last big one.
Okay.
I want to give a shout out to Apollo 18 for making the idea of going back to the moon scary because all the moon rocks are actually moon spiders and they kill everybody.
Oh, what the fuck?
Thought that was interesting. Have you seen that?
No. Wow.
It's pretty interesting.
It's fucking wild.
It's Apollo 18 mission and like these.
We didn't disturb them the first time.
The tagline is "There's a reason we haven't gone back."
Oh wow!
Yeah. Interesting, right? I remember.
Okay.
I would also say the movie Pandorum with Dennis Quaid, where it's again kind of like Event Horizon-esque.
Yep. Very Event
and then
Horizon.
The last one that I really kind of wanted to talk about are the Cloverfield movies.
Okay.
Because each one takes a different approach to that cosmic horror element. The first one is a found footage film where a monster is attacking New York, and you're not really sure what's going on. But there's also scenes in that where like there's little creatures in the subway that attacks our group of heroes.
Yeah, and you're not sure what the real threat is.
And you don't really know, and then you see the monster at the end, and you're like, oh, okay. And then 10 Cloverfield Lane comes along, and instead of it being like, it changes it where it's like, is the threat real?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're trapped in this bunker. Are you really, is any of this real? But then you go one step further, the lesser liked, but I still think it has some charm, the Cloverfield Paradox, where you kind of see where all of this ties together. They're on a spaceship. People are going crazy. You got the horror elements. And one of these days, I think I'm going to cover that, all three of them. On my channel, but I think that the Cloverfield movies aren't perfect. I think there were so many good ideas there, but it does feel like a series of movies where they were like, we'll just throw the Cloverfield name on it.
Yeah.
And make it work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But not bad. I mean, I think, again, it kind of takes that Lovecraftian mixed with like kind of that Godzilla, and then even throws in the found footage. And the first one was
a great sci-fi found footage film.
Do you remember the trailer for that? I remember because that's a 2008 film. I remember the 2007 teaser.
Yeah.
And I remember all it is the footage, like they run outside and they're like shaking, and then the Statue of Liberty head rolls down the fucking street. Yeah. And I was like, oh!
Whoa, great.
Like,
well, and
so
you love
good.
A good disaster
I'm gonna rewatch that movie today. But that was the last one that I really wanted to talk about. Again, just one of the few found footage films that's actually good and uses that element correctly. I mean, I would say that Blair Witch, Cloverfield, and the VHS series kind of all do that found footage really, really well. Yeah. But and then honorable mention, The Mist.
Oh yeah, The Mist. Honorable mention also makes you feel real bad at the end.
Oh my god.
Always makes you feel bad.
Great ending.
Great ending, yeah. Cosmic horror oftentimes has a good ending because you're like, wow, that was really heavy. It's real deep. So the last one that I really wanted to bring up was The Color Out of Space. I've already talked about it on the podcast. Nick Cage is elevated to like top Nick Cage level. And I would say that there's no actual direct monster shown in this film, and that's what makes it amazing, because the monster-like experiences have to do more with what we've been talking about this entire time. They have to do more with like body horror and the inconceivability of a thing that exists, and it does such a good job of highlighting that through and just showing like these humans in this tiny town are ill-equipped to deal with this thing. The Color Out of Space, right? And so the ending's really fulfilling. It's got a once again good ending. Like it kind of like I think when cosmic horror is done correctly, it leaves you with the question, okay, but what next? What if? Like and how does the rest of that play out? I think you never leave a cosmic horror film. Well, if it's proper cosmic horror, you don't leave the film going, and that's solved. Like, even the end of honorable mention True Detective, a couple different seasons in a row, there's kind of this feeling of like, oh, but that's not really it then, is it? Huh? Like, you're like, this'll keep happening? Like, well, and not only that, thank God they came back to it in the most recent season in Alaska, but there's this theme that time is actually a flat disc. And that's like, it's kind of central to the plot, but at the same time, just like an interesting thing that the show's positing. Yeah, so I really enjoy that concept, because what it's saying like all time is actually happening all at once, all the time, period. There's nothing you can do to stop any of this. Go ahead and change a few actions. We're still going to come back around to this cycle. Like, which is, I mean, if there's anything more scary than not being able to actually stop the cycle of something from happening and not knowing what the different outcomes would be should you make different choices, I don't know what is. You know, like, I don't know what's more scary than that.
No.
Yeah, you're literally locked into this, you puny, unimportant human, is the message that Cosmic Horror often sends.
Yeah,
and
does
then
a good job.
Thanks. And then a couple last mentions. So in the tabletop realm, you can get into Cosmic Horror. In Dungeons and Dragons, there is a space element, right? There's the Spelljammer realm that delves in a lot into the Cosmic Horror that's been horror that's been influenced by Lovecraftian and other realms and brought into D&D, like mind flayers, just things that are hard to conceive but that mess with human brains and kind of really, once again, or rather other sentient beings, and like just kind of lean into how foul, like how flimsy we are, like our consciousness and our these little sacks of meat and skeletons. And then I did want to make sure I mentioned this. I talk about this sometimes. Who knows how many listeners are actually caring? But Magic the Gathering did a
I knew you were going to mention Magic the Gathering.
I know. It did a wonderful job doing Lovecraftian / Cosmic Horror. There are these creatures in it, and I'll do a quick over-under on this, right? There are these creatures. They're called the Eldrazi. The way that they're described is the version of them that we see is like glimpsing the pinky, like the tip of the pinky finger of a giant, of a greater being dipping its way into our reality, right? And so the Eldrazi come in these three, as far as we know, there are three of them. One is called Emrakul, one is called Kozilek, and the other one is called Ulamog. Already very Lovecraftian, right? Emrakul Kozilek comes and starts like distorting the world. I forget the exact order, but no. Yeah, this is how it goes. Emrakul comes and everything turns fucking eldritch. We're talking about like entire townships of people meld together into this giant lumbering eldritch human homunculus tentacle monstrosity, right? As is with the town of Horraeur in Innistrad. And other things begin to take lattice-like shapes. Like imagine your arm turning into a lattice of DNA that gets tinted pink and purple, you know, like just fucking wild and gross and, you know, unfathomable. Kozilek comes along and distorts the world and turns all of this living, moving component substance into consumable material, like literally will distort the world, like in a way that we can't fathom mentally, but does so in a willful way. And then Ulamog comes along, and Ulamog is referred to as the ceaseless hunger. So you've got Emrakul, the Promised End is the name on one of the cards. You have Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, who's literally like chopping the world up and turning it into something different. And then you have Ulamog, the ceaseless hunger, or the infinite gyre, who comes in and just starts eating it all and leaving nothing but dust in his wake. And they do this on living planes of existence because they come from an area of the Magic the Gathering universe that nobody understands, which they're referred to as the it's not the Great Beyond. I can't remember what it is, but they come from like essentially the space between planes. So they're part of this larger cosmic, intercosmic even entity that when you see them, you're literally seeing the smallest piece of it, like a finger dipping into a pond, right? You're seeing that. Like they actually say it in the stories in Magic the Gathering. Imagine that you're a fish and you see a finger dipping into a pond, and all you see is the finger, but it's attached to a much greater thing outside of the pond, you know? And so they actually realize in the stories, they're like, we can't destroy this greater thing. We don't think ever. But what we can do is we can trap the finger here and do what we can to destroy that piece. And that, to me, like even just the concession that they're like, we might never destroy this thing that's going to come Oh, they come from the blind eternities. That's what they're called, which is very Lovecraftian as well, right? The blind eternities, literally eternal. But like, just they're like, we can trap this finger, so they end up like burning Ulamog and like destroying Kozilek and Emrakul. Emrakul actually never even gets destroyed. Emrakul, in a very eldritch fashion, gets trapped inside of the moon. Like, which is fucking wild. Yeah. So I really I love the attention to detail and the way that, because this wasn't one person who did this. These are entire teams of people that work for Magic the Gathering at Wizards of the Coast. So obviously there's a lot more creative input that goes into these things. But they did such a good job taking that genre and just bringing it into the Magic the Gathering multiverse. Like, I absolute hands down love them. Phenomenal. Yeah.
I knew you were going to bring up
Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering at some point, so.
Well, because, at the end of the day, I'm a huge fucking Magic the Gathering nerd, so.
Honestly, though, I mean, I can't even imagine how many times I've brought up, like, Jason Statham or, so.
Who based on the way that we're Fortniteifying all of our culture, will inevitably be in Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I'm surprised he doesn't have a skin in Fortnite.
I'm sure he does.
He doesn't.
Oh, really?
That's checked.
Interesting. You would think they would at least do the transporter.
You would think. Or, one of his other famous characters like Deckard Shaw.
Yeah.
Or, I can't believe I just forgot his name in The Meg. Jonas Taylor. Like, come on.
I honestly,
famous characters.
I feel like if the reason Jason Statham hasn't come into Fortnite yet is it would spark the debate of who's greater, Jason Statham or The Rock, all over again for Fortnite kids. Who knows? Who can say?
I know.
But also, he also has not made his way into Cosmic Horror, and that's because we all know that Jason Statham would just defeat the Cosmic Horror.
I meant Ghosts of Mars, but that's not cosmic.
Actually, you know what?
Actually,
you proved me wrong. He's there. He did it.
I did it.
You know what, Odie? You are correct. Play the Odie's correct music. Yep, there it is. That's what it sounds like when Odie's correct.
I don't know what it sounds like, but I'm imagining it's really good and not condescending at all.
No, of course not. Right, future Kev? Yeah, so what's your jam this week? Is it Cosmic Horror?
My Cosmic Jam or just my regular
What's your jam?
What's my jam? My jam is actually going to be a game that I guess could be considered Cosmic Horror, but
hit me.
So I've been a big fan of Helldivers too, but Starship Troopers
nice.
just released a up to six player co-op game that honestly is everything that Helldivers tried to be.
Yep.
It's you against bugs, you team up with people, it's very fun, it's very on brand for Starship Troopers, it feels like the world, that's a very fun universe.
Hell yeah.
I love, the symbolism and the allegory about, how it's, democracy and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Really fun game. It's on sale right now for like $40. It's definitely
cool.
It's a pretty big purchase, but I have a couple buddies that wanted to get it that I played Helldivers with, and I played it for the first time last night and just had an absolute banger of a time. So I'm excited to see if I continue to have fun with it or if I go back to Helldivers.
Okay.
So that's what I was kind of doing, and then also been rewatching one of my favorite TV shows as kind of like a comfort in the background. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yep.
Just always such a fun watch. Star cast, star writing.
Yeah.
I mean, Andre Braugher, rest in peace, one of the best characters in that show. You got Andy Samberg, you got Terry Crews, you got Stephanie Beatrice, like just fucking stacked to the brim. Just timeless.
So good.
That's what I've been jamming out to this week.
Mine
Your jam?
is so I've got two. If you're not convinced yet to get into Cosmic Horror and you want your foyer to be music, I recommend Between the Buried and Me, one of my favorite bands of all time. They are a concept band. I don't know whether they started that way, but they tell a giant cosmic horror story that works its way from the silent circus into Alaska, into the Great Misdirect, into the Parallax View 1 and 2. Just absolutely phenomenal. Coma Ecliptic, such a good album. I've seen these guys live multiple times. They have 14 to 19-minute songs sometimes. Maybe don't get into them that way. That might be a little too much. You know, it's like, yeah, I think I might like mustard. Let me enter this hot dog and mustard eating competition where you have to drink the mustard. You know, like that's too much.
Yeah.
So that's a fucking weird example.
It was, but we rolled with it.
But yeah, and then my second recommendation this week, I'm caught up to it now. I finished watching the 4th episode last night, and it really. I was already sold, but the 4th episode locked me the fuck in. The actress in this is phenomenal. The Penguin. I'm up to date on the Penguin. Colin Farrell's amazing. I forget the actress's name right now, but she is amazing. The direction of the show is amazing. Like it's everything that you would hope it would be with the cast, the crew, and the themes.
It's the lady from the woman lead in it is famous for The Mother and How I Met Your Mother, or what I think she's really good in, Palm Springs with Andy Samberg.
Yep.
Speaking of Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
yep.
She's the other lead in that.
Okay.
Phenomenal actress.
Odie, I need you to do me a huge favor. I've been dancing for the past 5 minutes. I have to pee. Take us out.
Take us out. Okay. Oh my God, it's too much pressure. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned as next week we talk about other thing. Kevin, why did you do this? Just put the music in. Kevin, put the music in right here. Just right here. Right here, Kevin. Put the music in and please just let this torture end. You can't. I don't. Can you just cut all this out? Okay, bye everyone. Spookiest time of the year is the time of the year that's spooky. And I can hear the screams of everyone. That sounds terrible. This is awful. Kevin, please cut all this out.
Did you take us out? Did you take us out?
I'm going to ask you to please cut all of that out because it's nonsense.
What?
I sang a random song and there was too much pressure and I didn't like it.
You're right, there was too much pressure.
It was too much pressure.
All right, let's do the real ending then.
Please.
It's wait, same time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Jesus.
Cosmic horror. Oh. Damn it. We fucked up.
See you later.